another edition of Hoops U. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by my co-host, BTN colleague, Rafael Davis, and we've got Kevin Willard from Maryland here. Kevin, I'm going to start right off at Big Ten Media Day. You had unbelievable praise for your newcomers, your freshmen, because we know about the returnees who we'll talk about momentarily. But tell us about these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, why I have so much praise for them is that, not every incoming class can make an impact. And these guys have come in and right away have, made an impact on this team from a practice standpoint, from, an energy standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. And it hasn't just been one guy. It's been all four of them. So, these guys have come in, they understand what we're trying to do here, but they've come in and they've worked really hard and they've made a pretty good impact.
Throw some names at us.
So Deshaun Harris-Smith, I mean, is probably as good a freshman as I've ever coached or have seen in a while. He has a competitive nature about him that it makes me feel like I'm coaching a senior because he doesn't want to lose a drill. He doesn't want to get beat. He doesn't want to do anything wrong. He just has a level of competitiveness about him that makes him very unique. Jamie Kaiser is physically ready to play in this league, which, to be ready to play in this league is a hard thing. And he's worked really hard, former football player. So he's got that toughness, but shoots the basketball as good as any freshman I've had. Jonathan Lamoth is one of those kids that's, he didn't get talked a lot about in this class, but he's kind of like the Swiss Army knife. He does it all. Great on defense, excellent passer. So I mean, those are just three of the guys. And again, they've all come in and made an impact.
I've watched Harris Smith a lot just in high school. I mean, his ability to put the ball in the basket is special. Do you and sometimes that's different from when especially the way he can score the ball using his physicality, using his body. Do you see that translating well into this league this year as a freshman?
It does. And I think, him playing with Jameer Young is really going to help him transition. I think if he wasn't out there with a guy like Dante Scott, who's a fifth-year senior, Jameer Young, fifth-year senior, Julian Reese, who's arguably one of the best big men in the country. I think he's got three guys that he can lean on. Yep. And I think that's all. It's helped every freshman. It's helped them all because, they got three or four veterans that kind of been through it, kind of know what they're doing. And then Jameer Young has been an unbelievable leader and trying to just put his arm around them and say, okay, hey, you can do this in high school. You really can't do this when you're going down. You see big Zach Edey down there. Let's understand where we're at. And they've really played well together. And Jameer has just been a tremendous leader for these young men.
Two things among many that I thought you did so well last year, Kevin, was one, and we talked about this, that you made sure the returnees knew that you weren't going to recruit over them, that if they're coming back, I'm in with you if you got both feet in. And now two of them are back again. And then you were able, and obviously you guys played well, to bring back an unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, you didn't lose at home in the league. The only loss was UCLA. I was there many times. It was fantastic. Can you look back at those two, one that was a decision sort of in your control, the other one sort of the way you guys played that clearly benefited last season's team and will this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Andy, one of the biggest things was like, I wanted to take advantage of 18,000 people. I wanted to take advantage of 8,000 students that come to the game and are into it and are passionate about it. And so, I've always pressed, but I've never really pressed like we did last year. I really ramped it up, and we're going to ramp it up again even more this year. This building, when it gets rocking, I said it after the Purdue game, after the Indiana game. There was times where I would sit back and just, sit up on the scores table and just look around and be like, man, this is awesome. And just I took it in. And the players did a phenomenal job. I mean, they bought in last year, and they love playing it, and they love playing in this place. The Xfinity Center is awesome, and it's a great place. And our students come out, they get here. Our fan base is great because, you play at 7:00 in College Park, you got to deal with the belt. And I've said, the only thing that's ever going to be undefeated in this town is the belt. because man, it's 6:30, man, you're sitting in traffic. So our fans come out, they're great. But our students lead it, man. Our kids love playing it.
It's easily one of the best atmospheres when it's going. Because I can remember playing there when it was Melo Trimble, Rasheed Suleiman, and those boys. I mean, they had it going. It's once they put down that tarp down the fans, and I mean,
Oh, don't call it a tarp, it's a flag, man. Don't be killing the flag. You get yourself in trouble around here.
my bad, no disrespect, but yeah, my cousin, my mother's from DC. All my cousins, they all went out to Maryland, so I was able to go watch games as a kid too. It's I've always said it's one of the better atmospheres, and when it's going. It's up there with Mackey. It's up there with Assembly Hall. It's Breslin Center is right there.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
Coach, go ahead.
I think that's what's really cool. I think it's the best thing about this conference. I mean, obviously we have great coaches. There's tremendous players. I mean, top to bottom, the amount of good players in this conference is amazing. But I do think it's such a cool conference because there's so many places you go play that is a great atmosphere. I mean, you just named 4 of them right off the bat that, you know, Michigan State was unbelievable, you know, and I have no problem talking about, you know, Purdue students were phenomenal. They were there 3 hours early, and you know, they all dress the same and they all do the cheers. I was like, man, these guys are smart. I can't remember an underneath out of bounds play, and these guys are like, they're doing the whole thing. So that's why I love the conference. It's such a hard place to win on the road because there's so many great atmospheres.
What's that? Because you guys struggled on the road some. I mean, you got a new point guard, Jameer Young, and he was new seeing some of those big time atmospheres. So what's that? Has there even been a message about playing on the road this offseason, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, you know what, the guys have talked about it more than I have. I kind of, you know, we had some chances. We lost at the buzzer at Nebraska, lost at the buzzer at Penn State. You know, we could have came in second in the conference if we gotten a rebound. You know, I think Jameer Young's gonna be much more confident this year, much better on the road just for going through it. It's a big jump from going, you know, from a conference where road games are kind of sleepy to road games where, you know, every game's an event. Dante Scott's going to be, I think everyone's sleeping on Dante Scott. I think he's going to have a monster year this year. He just, the way he's playing and the confidence he's playing with. And I think Julian, with the added newcomers, you know, I think we'll be a little bit better built. We're a little bit bigger. We're a little bit more, we have some better size. And I thought that hurt us on the road at times last year.
You know, in making this move, and it was such a no-brainer when all this was going on, whenever it was a year and a half ago. You know, it's easy to sort of look back. Okay, what could I have done differently? Obviously, you had a great year. You make the tournament. You could have gone even further. Did you have any chance, you know, a moment in the offseason to look back and say, you know what, this went really well. Maybe I could have done this a little bit better. And, you know, now I've got time, got my sea legs. Let's see what we can do going forward.
No, I hate to say it. I lost 3 assistants, you know, right after the season. Grant Billmeyer got the NJIT job. Tony Skin got the George Mason job. And so and then the portal opens and then you have NIL stuff. I really haven't had a chance, and you know, I had to go out and hire 2 new assistants, which I'm really happy with my staff. I mean, I'm so happy for Grant and Tony, 2 great guys who are going to be big time head coaches for a long time. You know, it's just, I really haven't had a chance to get my legs. You know, we had to put this roster back together. We had a trip to Italy. So it kind of, I looked at the date yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, it's the 11th of October. I play a game in 3 weeks. So I don't think college basketball's changed from spring and summer now is probably busier. Yeah. I think we're busier now in spring and summer than we are during the season. Like, I love the season. It's, you know, wake up at 6 a.m., get in the office, you know, be with your team and just shut everything down. But with the portal, with the transfer window, with NIL, you know, your off season's actually probably twice as busy as the season.
But can I just follow up? Like, so what do you think you did well? And now maybe, you know, you meaning the staff, the overall thing, and that you would, hey, now that we're here in a big time league that's only going to get better and bigger in a year, you know, here's where we have to tweak even more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the best thing we did as a staff is we established the way we were going to play and established our culture at a very, very right off the bat. I mean, it was the first thing that we did as a staff. We let these guys know what we were about, what we were going to do, how we were going to play. And then, you know, obviously, really right after the Alabama game, we sat in sat in the hotel and had a staff meeting, and we kind of just looked at our roster. And obviously, when you get a job and you have literally a week and a half to put your roster together, I thought we did an unbelievable job putting together a great roster. But then, when you lose to Alabama, the one thing we realized we weren't big enough and we weren't athletic enough. We weren't. I thought our guard play was great. We had some really good backups, but we were kind of small and we weren't athletic enough. And so that was really the one thing that I thought that we had to make a big change. We had to get a little bit more physical for league play, to handle league play. And then, I think what I'm excited about adding Oregon and UCLA and Washington is we'll get to play against some teams that play differently. So like Oregon and Washington obviously plays much differently. Mick plays very physical at UCLA, but at least we'll get to see a different type when you get into the tournament. I think that we hadn't seen a team like Alabama. West Virginia, it was like, it was a slugfest, just pound each other and throw it inside. But then Alabama came, and I remember I looked down to like the 13th guy at Alabama, and he was like 6'11". That dude wasn't even getting in the game. And I was like, let me borrow him for like 5 minutes. So that was the biggest thing. And I think we did a great job in the offseason as a staff of really saying, okay, we have Jameer, we have Dante, we have a great freshman class, obviously Julian. How do we now, when we get into the tournament, when we get into Big Ten play, how do we make it so that we can be a better team? And I think Jordan Geronimo, a transfer from Indiana, he's been awesome. Absolutely. I've been able to play Dante Scott at the 3 and him at the 4. They were playing him at the 3. Matty Tredor is a transfer from New Mexico State, 6'11", jumps out of the gym. So we added some athleticism and some size, and I think it benefited the roster really well.
Coach, I was actually going to ask you about Jordan Geronimo next, because he was one of my favorite players that didn't really get that much opportunity last season. Because you could see, and I know he's with you guys now, but just going back to last year, when he started to play more at Indiana, they started to win. It was a more effective lineup when he was in there. And I heard you rave about him at Media Day, and quite honestly, I hadn't seen him shoot that many jumpers, and you said he was making jumpers and whatnot. So what has he looked like? What has he added to his game? Because I think with his size, his athleticism, his second jump is so quick. Like, what is he going to bring to you guys?
Yeah, when he went into the portal, it was I told the staff, I had recruited him a little bit at Seton Hall, and then he had blown up and then obviously went to Indiana. I was like, man, that's the one guy that I think changes our team. He's the one guy that, he's not the same as anybody we have. We can play him at 4 different positions. And I remember we played Indiana at home, and he was hurt. And I walked on the floor, and I remember seeing him in a boot, and I looked at my assistants. I said, we're going to win the game. I said, this game's over. And they looked at me like I was nuts. And I said, well, we got 18,000. They're going to help us. And I said, that kid's a difference maker. And, he's been awesome. He's a tremendous young man, has a great work ethic, but, he shoots the basketball pretty darn good. Rebounds in basketball. He fits the way we play defensively. We switch 1 through 4. We're trapping and we're pressing a little bit more. So, again, we try to really, when we go to the portal, we just don't take anybody. We really try to look for guys that aren't going to overlap our guys on the roster, and really look to kind of build our roster.
Real quick,
go again.
My bad, Andy. But just off of that, how because we've seen, and this is just the day and age we're in, how important is it going into the portal and getting the right guy that's coming to Maryland for the right reason? And is that something that you guys talk about as a staff, and making sure you're getting winners and guys that are just not trying to transfer for NIL and that sort?
Well, I think they're all transferring for NIL.
I like that, Coach.
I'm not mad at them. I don't blame it. We created the system, so it's on us. No, the way we look at the portal is very simple. Like, we had 4 incoming freshmen. And so we didn't want to make sure, these freshmen are going to play. So we didn't want to bring any transfers that were going to impact the growth of our freshmen. Because I think this freshman class, if I can keep them together and keep them here, it can grow and be something very special by next year. And I expect, 1 or 2 of them not to be around very long, but, so again, you look at the portal, and sometimes people just take it, and all of a sudden you forget you have a Deshaun Harris-Smith coming in that, you said that you're going to come in and you're going to play with Jameer Young. You can't come in and bring someone else like him. So, that's where a guy like Jordan was great, because he doesn't, he didn't impact any of the freshmen. He didn't impact any of the guys who were coming back. He fits in and he really blends in well with all these guys.
All right, Raphael, I'm not going to date you here, but Kevin, we're in a new era. Like, in the 80s and 90s, like this was unheard of this within the league. And I know the leagues are getting balloonier, but think about like Jamison Battle, Minnesota, Ohio State. Evan Mahaffey goes to Ohio State from Penn State. You have Jordan Durano from Indiana, to Maryland. So this movement within the league, and then some coaches will get mad. Oh, well, you can't bring. Well, you're looking at my guy when we played, but we're at a point now where it's all happening. So how does your mind shift to where this is the new world that you could be going against a guy one year, and you know what? Next year he's mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Jay Wright and I, for years, argued in Big East meetings about making sure that we didn't have, and I think the Big East was the last conference to kind of give in to interconference transfers. And it was for that reason. One of the reasons was just because, like St. John's, Seton Hall, Providence, Villanova, we're all so close and we all kind of were close together. I think what's a little bit different about now is that, I mean, if you think about it, the Big Ten goes from coast to coast. I mean, we're the only conference that really goes from, Rutgers is technically New York or DC all the way out to LA now. So it's not like, we're so far apart, we're a 2-hour flight from Indiana. So I think that's a little bit different where you're really not seeing these guys that much. Where in the Big East, we played everybody twice. It was a true round robin. We all recruited the same area. So we all kind of knew each other. So it was a little bit different, but now it's kind of, man, we're going to be 18 teams, something like that.
Yeah.
We're going to be 18 teams that go coast to coast, which I think is awesome. I'm super excited about adding the West Coast teams, but I don't think you don't even look at it anymore with the portal. I think the portal has become so big that you don't even think about it. Like you're not watching somebody thinking, oh, that guy could be on my team next year, because they could be watching my guy thinking that guy could be on his team next year. So, I just don't think you think about it. You just wait to see who pops in the portal, and then you just go try to build your roster. I think everyone looks at it the same way.
Coach, I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier when you bringing the new teams into the Big Ten. It's going to add a different style of play. And I'm just curious, will that change how you go about recruiting, or will that change how you look at recruiting when it's time to compete in the league or compete in the NCAA?
No, I mean, I think I just think it's going to help us prepare. I think it's going to help us, because I can't really worry about who Oregon and Washington are recruiting, because, I'm not going to recruit in Seattle probably. We have one of the best recruiting areas in the country. I mean, the DMV is unbelievable. Baltimore, obviously DC, Northern Virginia. I mean, this whole area is just loaded with, it's very unique because it's not only great players, but we have unbelievable high school coaches, unbelievable AAU coaches, unbelievable AAU programs that, start in 6th grade and build these kids up. I mean, this really is a family. It's a tight knit community here. So we're going to, the biggest thing I've learned is, I think you just have to have enough athleticism to go play, because the SEC is a much more athletic league than the Big Ten. I think the Big 12 is more athletic. I think we're much better. I think we're a little bit more physical. I think we're a little bit deeper. But I think when you play against an SEC team that you haven't quite seen, you have to have that athleticism to match them in the tournament play. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned over the last couple of years. When I was at Seton Hall, we played TCU, and they were huge. I mean, they were just so big and physical that we just weren't ready to match up with them. So making sure your roster can compete. And I think, going to play against Oregon is going to help us. Playing against a Washington that's a different style that plays zone that we don't see. No one plays zone in the Big Ten. Everyone says I do, but I'm still trying to figure out what I do. So I think it's only going to help us. And I'm excited about, obviously going out to LA, playing Riviera, playing some good golf, getting a little sunshine during December.
Hey, one last thing for me, because when I talked to Tom Izzo at Big Ten Media Day, he says, look, I'm not going anywhere. We got all these guys that are.
You sure?
Yeah, that's what he says in his era.
Can you talk to him again?
But I'm thinking like, okay, he says that. Your old boss, Rick Pitino, is like now talking about St. John's as if he's going to be there for 10 years. He's scheduling games all over the place. He's got this second, third, fourth wind. your dad was a college coach. You know the grind of this. You know how crazy it's been. What do you think of the longevity of this profession now when there are a couple outliers like Izzo and Patino?
Yeah, you know what? It's a good question. I mean, I think Coach Pitino's still on his first wind. He hasn't, his energy level has always been unbelievable. So is Coach Izzo's. I think there's, those guys really grinded it in a much different era. A lot of their early coaching was pretty much fun. I mean, if you go back and look at the 5-star days that they really had a very tight-knit community back in the day. They looked out for each other, but they didn't have summer basketball. They didn't have crazy summer recruiting. They didn't deal with NIL. They didn't deal with the transfer portal like the younger generation has. We've been dealing with it for a lot longer than they
didn't have social media.
They didn't have social media or message boards. So I think for these guys, this is fun. Coach Patino's having a blast. I mean, he really is. He's as energetic as ever. Coach Izzo is unbelievable. The longevity, if you're asking me if I'm going to be coaching at 70, I'm going to tell you right now that I will not be coaching at 70. I'll be down on the beach somewhere in Florida, hopefully, watching my grandkids, hopefully doing something like that. It's just a different time. I love coaching. I love, obviously blessed to do what I do, but I don't think there's too many young guys that are going to be looking forward to being at 70.
And Coach, before we let you go, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one of my favorite guys. And I think he's grown not just on the court, but confidence-wise under you. Julian Reese. I think he's like you could see him start to poke his chest out halfway through the year last year. Like you mentioned that media day, like that Purdue game, that Indiana game, that Wisconsin game. You got Crowd, Edie, and then TJD. You almost win the Purdue game. You beat the Indiana. So like, how has he grown this offseason? What steps do you see him taking? Because now, I mean, he's right there, 1, 2, 3 best bigs in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's 1, 2, 3 best bigs in the country. I think when we went through that Crowell, I think it was Crowell, Hunter, Edie, and then we went the young man in Nebraska.
Derek Walker.
Yeah, I mean, boy, that guy, he was and I think he went through it and he survived it. And then all of a sudden, like I looked at him like, big man, you didn't just survive this, you dominated this. Like, you got to understand where you are. I said, as a sophomore in this league, you just went up against 4 of the toughest big guys who are older, bigger. And I said, you kicked their ass. And I'm like, you have to understand that. And I said, we rode him the whole second half of the season. We threw it into him. We ran high post action, but most importantly, we had a lot of confidence in the fact that, the back of the rim was going to be protected. And most big guys I've had are hard workers, but when it comes to their individual game, you kind of got to motivate them a little bit. Juju's not that way. Juju and I started working on his shot right at the beginning of April, right when summer started. I said, man, we got to improve your range. We got to improve some things. It's going to take a year. It's going to take a year and a half, but we're going to change it. And he met me every morning for about 4 straight weeks at 8 a.m. every morning.
That's cool.
Monday through Sunday. I didn't have to text him. He would text me at night saying, hey, coach, I know you're out recruiting. Are you back on Monday? And be like, yep, let's go. Let's get after it.
Cool. That's cool.
So that's the type of kid he is. He's got a tremendous mom that's really helped him. His sister and him are close, and he's motivated to make it. I'd put that kid on an NBA team any second, just because he's going to help you win. He's going to get better. He's young. I think he just turned 20. So it's like, it's amazing. He's such a great kid. And I agree. I think he's the best big man in the country. I'm blessed to have him.
Well, Kevin, we appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you guys. We both, I think, really love this team.
Thanks. I like it too. They're a lot of fun. As long as they stop beating each other up, I'll actually hope I can get to November 7th.
Yeah, Coach. I love like what you said earlier. I've been saying that this whole offseason. You get 2 really, really talented freshmen, and then you don't just have normal senior. Because I came in with some seniors and whatnot, but you have, like, Dante Scott's a grown man. He's a leader. And Jameer Johnson's not taking no shit in the locker room.
No, man. I put Dante at the 2 guard the other day just to have some fun. And they came running over to me like, whoa.
Yeah.
put him back over there. Get him back on the other side of the floor. We want nothing to do with this dude. I'm like, no, this is fun. Dante's, he's posting up little guys. He was like, man, can I stay over here? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, I like that. I'm excited for y'all, coach.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, man. Good seeing you.
Okay, you too. All right. So we haven't talked much about Maryland. I always feel like in the Big Ten they get overshadowed, but I'm going to tell you, I think they're a dark horse to go far in March.
Yeah, I think like Robbie said it the other day. I think it's Purdue in its class of its own as far as the Big Ten, and then I think Michigan State, Maryland's right there because I watched Harris Smith a lot in high school. Just having people out there as well. He can really do some things, and I like having freshmen, like Coach said. He's not going to be expected like a Mackenzie Mbako at Indiana. He's going to have to average upward 16, 17, 18 points for them to be successful.
Right.
But Harris Smith, he has Jameer Young who can go and get you 20, 25. Dante Scott can have a big game. They're throwing the ball inside. So it's allowing a very talented freshman to be a role player. And if you got two NBA freshman caliber guys as role players with some really high leadership as seniors and a Dante Scott and a Jameer Young guy that want to win, I think they're right there. And then the bench, like Coach said, their bench got more athletic. They didn't lose a lot they lost some athletes, but they get Geronimo. They got a 6'11". I think I see no reason this team shouldn't at least be to the Sweet 16. I'm real high on Maryland.
And I mean, think about it. They established that home court. Like we can now say, like, it's not a guarantee, but you feel fairly confident they're going to go, 10-0.
I mean, yeah,
at home.
It's tough to go undefeated at home, and they
did it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
They did it, and I'm not saying it's a lock, obviously, but they've got the ability to do it. And last year, you pointed this out. I mean, they almost got Purdue. That was it was like a Sunday afternoon game, I think, kind of sneaked in there, and they almost won it. And they, that Nebraska and Penn State game were right there. So they had multiple chances to win more on the road.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think those are like that rebound at Penn State. I think they get that rebound this year. They're older, more physical. I think Julian Reese will demand more of himself. Dante Scott, like when you're an old guy in college basketball, you are not here, and like lack of better words, you're just not here for the bullshit. Like you're just not sticking around for the dumb stuff. I can remember playing with fifth year guys, and like a John Noctius, he went harder on the freshmen. He made sure they were ready to play. I mean, Jameer Young is a guy that aspires to play at the next level, and Coach Willard at Media Day said he aspires to get him there. So I think this year's team on the road, they'll be more mature. Like Coach said, I can remember Johnny Hill when Johnny Hill came to Purdue, I think Texas Arlington, and we were going on the road to we were going to Indiana, we were going to these places, and it will throw him off sometimes. I mean, you look up you go to Indiana and you go in before the game, you look at the student section, and Coach was talking about this, but they have a sheet. They have a sheet with their chants, a sheet with player information, how they're going to talk trash about you during the game. They have details about you, and that just would throw Johnny Hill off all the way. So I get Jameer Young being routed on the road, and now coming in is probably one of the better point guards in the league. It'll help. And then sometimes freshmen can have ignorance is bliss about them, kind of. And I think Harris Smith is that guy. When on the road, you need a big bucket, things get tight. He may take a bad one, but it goes in. And I think he's that talented type of guy.
And I will say this also, they're non-conference. It's good. And like, the UCLA on the road, that's the kind of game we'll learn a lot more about because, UCLA is going to be better later this year because they're a lot younger. But that's the kind of game, like if Maryland gets that early,
make them feel,
then that's significant. Any other quick thoughts from Media Day in Minneapolis? Anyone else that popped up for you that you said, what, maybe I didn't think about this? Or
I feel, I didn't think no one was really talking about Iowa, and I spent some time with Patrick and with Peyton Sanford, and they're excited about it. Peyton's told me, he said another year they pick us 11th. We're going to outscore everybody. We're playing faster. We're playing small ball. And if they both told me that Ben Kirky is as good as advertised. They said coming to the Big Ten shouldn't change much for him. And I think if he come in and be that 4-man, and they said he's similar to the past 4-mans they had, think Aaron White type, think of those dudes. He fits that mold. I think Tony Perkins or Sanford, one of those guys, could have a Peter Jock type year when Jerry Utoff left, where you just score the ball in bunches. Then you think about talking with Michigan. No one's talking about Michigan. I mean, Amari Burnett was a McDonald's All-American out of high school. Olivier Nkamwa, he may not be their number one guy, but after talking with Coach Sadi, Doug is ready. I mean, you got Doug and Terrace. So I'm curious about those two teams more so than others. But then I was shocked how Wisconsin really didn't get a lot of love with all their returners. And just knowing Wisconsin, I'm curious to see how they play as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, when I was talking to Tom Izzo, and obviously I respect his opinion, he kept hammering to me like, why is no one talking about Wisconsin?
Yeah.
You know, he's like, they literally bring everybody back that matters, essentially. Yep. And they were within a couple of possessions of being a tournament team. And, you know, they really should be, you know, a contender. And, you know, as long as they, if they got a little bit more athletic, I know they picked up the transfers from St. John's. And if they can figure out how to close games better, which I think they will, and also health. I mean, let's be honest. Tyler Wall was not healthy.
Yeah.
You know, Chucky was not 100% all year. Yep. But, you know, Connor Seagen's coming in with a lot of confidence. If you're going to wear what he wore, you know you're confident.
If you're going to wear all red with the red shoes, you know he's feeling good about himself. He looks like he's added some weight. So, offensively, they have him. He should be a knockdown shooter for those guys. He should take a step defensively just from watching a lot of film this summer. Chucky has a redemption season coming. Tyler Wall has a redemption season coming. And then I like with Max Klesmit, year 2 under Coach Gard. Now he knows exactly what, not saying that the expectations weren't set. It's just he's more comfortable in them now. He knows his role. He knows the team trusts him. I think he has a better year. And then you talk about AJ Storr coming in from St. John's. I think he brings that athleticism. I'm not saying by any means is he Johnny Davis or whatnot, but he brings that type of slasher, that type of guy that can get to the basket off of the dribble, get to the rim, make plays at the rim, someone you have to worry about. Because you look at last season, there were times where teams will put their bigger guard on Chucky. And it would bother Chucky from getting the shot off at times, getting to his spots. And now you have a guy like AJ who brings that to where now things are kind of back normal. And it's still Wisconsin. Like, still going to Wisconsin it's tough to win there. So I have it as like I named those 3, and then if I was to pick the next 2, I would go Illinois, Wisconsin, those 2, and then it will come down to discipline. I think Wisconsin will have more discipline throughout the year than Illinois, but I think those are my next 2.
And don't sleep on the Wildcats.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Northwestern's gonna be good again. All right, where can we find our podcasts?
WillardHoopsU, we are on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube. Every week, one episode a week. Subscribe to us on the podcast channel, wherever you can find your podcast. HoopU, check us out. We're getting into the season. Excited to get going.
All right. Thanks for watching and listening, everyone.